Hi, everybody. This is Nanette Kennedy uh, in the gang with Evolution Revolution and Humanities team. And we are going to pick up where we left off. And actually, we're not actually, we're not going to pick up exactly where we left off. But I will let Linda fill us in on that. And I'd like to welcome Sarah and Shabana and Mary and Angela and Norma and Vima. Did I say Linda already? But if I didn't, you get it twice. All right, let's get the show started and let us know what page we're on.
Okay, and before that, I want to just remind everybody that because we're at 86% done with this book, so in the next couple of weeks, we're going to need to move on. And I think we decided, based on Neil's recommendation, that we would move to the storm before the calm, which is a conversation with humanity book. Okay, so we are.
I was just going to add something to what you said, Linda.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I'm going to ask everybody, if you're comfortable with it, to promote. Next week, I'll have a promotion written up to ask people to join us because of what's going on in the world and that book. See if some more people might be interested because of what the subject matter is. Over.
Sounds good. Okay, so today we're towards the end of Tomorrow's God, Our Greatest Spiritual Challenge. And we're at the beginning of chapter 24. This is a long chapter, so whether or not we'll get all the way through it, I'm not sure, but I'll be watching the clock, and if it doesn't look like we're going to get all the way through it, then I'll go ahead and stop in time for Shabana to do the meditation. But it's also a long chapter, and so if there's at any point where you want to stop and talk, just interrupt me, because I won't have a way to be able to see what's happening while I'm reading. And like I say, I did thumb through it, so it is long. Okay, so, and we are on page, looks like 366, chapter 24, The Way to Enlightenment. This is Neil. Okay, what's this all about? God says it's time for us to practice the first basic tenet of a new spirituality, which is that all wisdom you ever need lies within you, that you are all having conversations with God all the time, that every time you go within, search with a pure heart and a deep desire to know your highest truth, you will receive it. All you have to do is listen to what you have to say to yourself and then trust that. This is Neil. Yeah, I feel that. I know that. We're going to demonstrate that right here. We are? Yes. Our conversation on the topic of Tomorrow's God is now over in its present form. For the length of this dialogue, I have allowed you to ask the questions and to receive my answers as if I was the one with all the insight and you were the one who lacked awareness. This is not what is true about you, and this continuing dialogue is not modeling what is true about anyone. The truth about all of you is that you have deep insights and extraordinary wisdom, and all you have to do to experience it is open up to it and call it forth. I believe that. Through the years, I've come to believe that about yourself, about everyone. Yes, but do you include yourself in that? Many people think that people in general are wise, but that they are not. Many people think that in general people are attractive and beautiful, but that they are not. Many people believe the best about others, and the worst about themselves. Mrs. Neal, I do not. I'm not in that group. With humility, I would say that I believe I'm no less capable than the rest of humanity of accessing and bringing forth wisdom from within. We'll see. What do you have up your sleeve here? Mrs. God, I've already told you. I'm going to suggest to you that you and all others have all the answers to every question you could ever ask. And I'm going to conclude our conversation by proving it. I'm going to turn the tables on you with the biggest question of all. Oh boy, are you ready? I suppose. You suppose. Well, are you ready or aren't you? Yes. Right. Now we have something going on here. Now, remember, from this point on, you are the one with the answers, and I am the one with the questions. I understand. So here's the biggest, most important question in the entire conversation that we've been having. What is the way to enlightenment? What will the new spirituality, what will tomorrow's God have to say about that? Mrs. Neal, you know, I've already looked at that. I even did a sharing about that with a small group of people, a dozen people recently. And what did you tell them? And what do you want to add now to what you said? Go ahead, I'm waiting for your answer. What is the way to enlightenment? Neal, well, enlightenment is this elusive, magical, mystical experience for which everyone seems to be reaching, and for which everyone seems to have a yearning, and for which everyone seems to be searching. And I understand the reasons for the search, because if we are all enlightened, one imagines that our lives would be better than they are now, when we are presumably unenlightened. In addition, it occurs to me that if all of us were enlightened relatively quickly, the whole world would be different and we would experience life in another way, presumably with less turmoil, less stress, less conflict for sure, I would imagine, with less sadness and anger and less violence, and much less of all the things that make our lives sad and disjointed and unhappy in these days and times. So humanity searches for enlightenment, and we've been searching for enlightenment from the beginning of time, ever since we became consciously aware of the fact that it was possible to be enlightened, whatever that is. Whatever that is, you don't even know what it is to be enlightened? Have a little patience, everything will soon become clear. Does that sound familiar? That sounds familiar. Sound like something you would say? It does. You've learned quickly. Go on. We've not only been searching for enlightenment, we've been searching as well for a definition of enlightenment, because we can't get to that definition or destination until we know where we are going. And so the first step for most human beings has been to try to define what enlightenment is, or what it looks like, or feels like, or tastes like, or what it is like to experience that. And then after we have that clear, after we know what our destination is, then we can try to figure out what it would take to get from where we are to where we want to be. And there is a rush to enlightenment that I observe that humanity, or a portion of humanity, is engaged in. And many say that they know how to get there and that they know how you get there. And so we see many, many paths to enlightenment that are suggested, recommended, created, expressed, experienced, shared, and put into the space of our collective lives. Masters of every shape and size and color have been creating a way to be enlightened for millennia. Paramahanta Yogananda said that he knew a way to enlightenment. Sai Baba said he knew a way to enlightenment. The Buddha said he knew a way to enlightenment. Maharishi said, Yogi said that he knows a way to enlightenment. In their own way, Jesus Christ and Abu Muhammad something, oh, that's a long one, Muhammad said that they knew a way to enlightenment. Now, the interesting thing here is that the followers of all these masters have insisted that their master was right about that their way was the best way and the fastest way. Maybe not the only way, but the fastest way, and therefore you needed to take that way. There was a great urgency. You needed to become a Catholic, or you needed to take Transcendental Meditation, or you needed to learn Tai Chi, not sometime, but right now, immediately, this month. Or you needed to join this group, or do that process, or read this book, or be baptized, or be unbaptized, or do whatever it is you have been told by your particular master is the fastest, quickest way for you to get where all of us want to go, which is the place called enlightenment. Now, the danger of this business of enlightenment is twofold. The first danger is thinking that there is something specific that you have to do in order to get there, and that if you don't do that, you can't get there. And the second danger is thinking that your way to get there is the fastest, best way to do so. A few years ago now, I guess it's about 12 or 15 years ago, I was approached by people in the Est movement. Werner Erhard created the Erhard seminar trainings, which was a huge movement in the New Thought community in the United States and around the world 25 years ago or so. People who were involved in the Est movement were absolutely convinced that this was the fastest way to enlightenment. So they began recruiting people to take Est, and they became very engaged in the process. It was almost urgent, an urgent matter with them. And they couldn't understand why you didn't get the urgency if you didn't get it. They would look at you and say, you just don't get it, do you? That was natural because they had found something that changed their whole life virtually overnight. And they wanted to give that to you, and they knew that this was the way. There were many ways. This wasn't the only way, but this was probably the fastest way. And I enrolled in the Est program, and I too became enlightened. In fact, I became so enlightened that I realized that I did not need Est to be enlightened, which really upset the Est people because they wanted me to take the next level and the next level and the next level of training. It seems that Est was a program that had multitudinous levels. You could take level 1, level 2, level 3. They had very fancy names for them. And once you got into the program, you could virtually never get out of it. You had to almost extract yourself out of it. And if you did get out of it, you were made to feel by those who were inside of it that you had done something desperately sad. Not wrong, just very sad, because you just didn't get it. Many years ago, Paramahanta Yogananda started the Self-Realization Fellowship. Yogananda taught it in the West from 1920 until his death in 1952. He published his life story, Autobiography of a Yogi, in 1946. It went far in introducing Vedic philosophy to the West. When Yogananda, or Master as he was called, came to America, he brought a technique for self-realization, which was his phrase meaning enlightenment. When you realize who the self is, you become enlightened. And Master described himself as being enlightened. And by the way, he was enlightened. And he was enlightened because he said he was. This is God. You mean that's all it takes? Neil. Yes, I hate to break the spell that someone may be under, but to be enlightened is to say that you are. It's quite simple as that. And we will talk more about that in just a minute. People heard Yogananda give his talks and explain his technique for enlightenment, which involved a process that included, among other things, deep meditation every day. And the process was one that Yogananda taught to his students, and his students taught to their students, and their students taught to their students, and so on, until a very large number of people all over the United States, and indeed around the world, were involved in this self-realization fellowship, which, by the way, continues to function to this day and now has many followers. If you talk to some of those members of the self-realization fellowship, they will tell you, this is the way, this is the path. Master has shown us the path. There are many other paths. This is not the only path, and this may not be the best path, but it is the surest path that we know of, and so come on and join the self-realization fellowship. And that is wonderful, because that is their experience, and they are sincerely sharing it. In even more contemporary times, a fascinating man named Maharishi surfaced a few decades ago, and he announced yet another path to enlightenment. His path is called Transcendental Meditation, or for short, TM. Maharishi made friends with the Beatles when they were at the height of their popularity, and within a very short period of time became very popular around the world and began teaching far more widely and creating temples and meditation centers all across the globe. He established huge universities. There's a very large one in Fairfield, Iowa right now. And there are other learning centers that he has established around the world, and many so-called TM centers. Now, I learned Transcendental Meditation, and I learned it from other students who 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 learned it from the master. And there is some sense of quiet urgency on the part of some of these people in the Transcendental Meditation movement, because they will tell you that Transcendental Meditation is a tool that can bring you to enlightenment in a very short period of time, and they want that for you. When you have a life-changing technology, you naturally want to share it with as many people as you can. And there is nothing wrong with that. That is very exciting and it's very wonderful. But as with sex and as with sugar and as with any good thing, it can throw you out of balance if you are not careful, if you go overboard with it. Now, there are many other programs as well, like Maharishi and Transcendental Meditation, like Yogananda with the Self-Realization Fellowship, like Werner Herhart and the EST program. There are many other programs, many approaches, many paths developed by many masters. There was a book written, Many Lives, Many Masters, by a wonderful man named Brian Weiss. And he talks about the fact that there are many ways to reach the mountaintop. Which way, then, should we recommend? Which way, then, should we encourage others to take? This is God. That's what I'm asking you. Or should we simply encourage others to investigate for themselves the many paths that are here, that are, and empower them to know that inside their heart and soul, they will pick the path that is just right for them, if their intuition is pure and if their desire is true. God says, no one calls to me who is not answered. You are right, I do say that. And tomorrow's God will make sure that each of us is answered in the way that most effectively responds to the vibration that we create and hold in the center of our being. To put this another way, God or divinity or enlightenment, if you please, appears in a form in lives of every person that is most appropriate to their background, their culture, the level of their understanding, the level of their desire, and their willingness. This very conversation, this book that many will be reading falls into that category. For some, it will be perfect, the perfect tool of communication. For others, it will not, and they will not even have read this far and will not know what is being said here. So there are many means of communication, and there are many disciplines, physical disciplines, mental disciplines, spiritual disciplines, and some disciplines that involve all three, the body, mind, and the spirit. We spoke of the Buddha earlier. It is good to tell the whole story. His name was Siddhartha Gautama. He lived in riches and luxuries as a young man because his father and his family were rulers of a large area of countryside and had much wealth. They tried to protect Siddhartha from any knowledge of outside world for many years, and they kept him in the grounds. But one day Siddhartha ventured outside the walls of the compound and learned of life as it existed on the street. He learned of poverty and of illness and of disease and of cruelty and of anger and of all the so-called negative experiences that no one ever allowed him to experience when he was inside the gates of his compound. And he gave up all of his riches and all of his luxuries, his whole family, left his wife and children, everyone at home, and disappeared, essentially, and embarked on his search for enlightenment. What can I do? He asked himself. What can I do? And he then underwent a series of very rigorous physical and mental disciplines, from fasting to day-long meditations to physical trainings of every imaginable sort. And this went on for quite a while, not a week or two, but a long time, something like 6 years. He sought out other masters and asked them how they achieved or moved toward the experience of enlightenment. And he did as they told him, because he wanted to honor the masters that he met along his path. But nothing brought him the experience of enlightenment. It only brought him an emaciated body and a life that was made difficult with physical and mental discipline and training. And one day, Siddhartha said, I am going to sit beneath this tree until I am enlightened. I've tried everything. I've done all the physical disciplines, all the trainings, all the exercise, all the starvation, all the diets, all the fasting, and all the meditation. I'm just going to sit here on the ground. I am tired of all this stuff, and I'm not getting up until I am enlightened. And he sat there doing nothing. No exercises, no meditations, no fasting, nothing. Just sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Now that is hard for many of us to do because we think there is something we are supposed to be doing in order to be enlightened. And the Buddha sat there until he opened his eyes and realized that he was enlightened. And he said, I'm enlightened. And people came to him and cried out, what did you do? What did you do? Teach us, Master. You have become the Buddha, the enlightened one. What is the secret? What did you do? And the Buddha said something quite extraordinary. There is nothing you have to do. Imagine, after all that time, after all that self-flagellation, wearing a hair shirt and starving his body and doing his physical discipline, after all that time, he realized it was not about telling beads or lighting incense or sitting in a meditation for 3 hours a day. It's not about any of that. It can be if you want it to be. It can be if that's what suits you. It can be if that is your path. But it is not necessary to do anything. The Buddha said, in effect, I am enlightened because I have realized that enlightenment is knowing that there is nothing that you have to do to be enlightened. Isn't that interesting? It's sad in a way when you think of all the effort that people are putting in with years-long programs and trainings only to find out that enlightenment requires nothing at all. Now, I have come to this conversation, and I'm going to end by saying something daring. I'm going to tell you that one day I too could be enlightened. You may think I'm joking, but I'm not. I could be an enlightened master, and so could everyone. And do you know how I will know I'm enlightened? When I find peace and joy and love in every moment. I too, like Buddha, like Jesus the Christ, like Yogananda, like Maharishi, like Ilchi Sung Hung Lee, chose to seek enlightenment on my own particular path. I have tried everything. First, I tried Orthodox religion. I said my rosary faithfully every day because there was this formula that you could use to have God answer your prayers. There was a litany. There was a process. I also tried fasting. I tried meditation. I tried reading every book I could get my hands on. I took EST. I learned Transcendental Meditation. I learned transactional analysis. I walked down many paths, many, many paths. And then one day I had an out-of-body experience. Now that was interesting because I wasn't trying to do this. I was trying to produce outcomes with my fasting. I was trying to produce outcomes with my meditation. I was trying to produce outcomes with my rosary and with my disciplines. But those were not bringing me where I wanted to go. Now here I was just simply trying to get some sleep. I just fell asleep. But in that moment, I flew out of my body quite involuntarily, just flew, just left. And I knew I had left. It was a conscious awareness. I was not in my body, and I knew I was not. I won't take time here to explain to you or to describe for you my experience, although I can tell you it was very real. It is very real to me to this very day. I've had 3 such experiences in my life, 2 since the original one, and every one of those experiences brought to me to the same place, a space of absolute, capital A, awareness, kind of like an AA meaning, absolute awareness. And when I returned from my very first out-of-body experience, I was left with 2 words that blew my mind. Would you like to know what they were? Says God, I'm all ears. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. What an amazing message for my soul to receive from the unified soul that is all of life. Nothing matters. And yet, like the S training, like Transcendental Meditation, like my venturing into the work of Yogananda that changed my life. And here's the message behind the message. If nothing matters intrinsically, then I am free to declare what I choose to have matter to me. But if something matters intrinsically, that is to say, if something matters to, say, God, then I had better figure out what that is. Because if I don't figure out what it is, I will be the thing called condemned, or at very least, unenlightened. But a voice in my out-of-body experience said to me, nothing matters. I knew then that we are free to make whatever we choose to make matter in our lives. And I mean that in 2 ways. Not only to make it matter, but to make something into matter, to manifest into physical reality, something out of invisible energy, to turn energy into matter. So here's what I would share with people who ask about enlightenment. If you think there is a path to enlightenment, that is the only path, the best path, the fastest path, the one that everyone has to know about by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, you will suddenly find yourself feeling pressure, stress, upset, and your ego will be deeply involved in convincing as many people as you can that that's what's so. Suddenly you will start acting not like a master at all, but like someone who is under a terrific amount of pressure and stress, because it will suddenly matter to you whether I get what you are telling me, trying to tell me. If you are not careful, you even start having quotas or goals. You'll start to have a certain number of people to agree with you every week, or every month, or every year. And if you don't meet those goals, you will think that you have not done a good job. And yet you have done a good job. If you simply love without expectation, without requirement, without needing anything in return. Enlightenment, when it's all said and done, has nothing to do with what you do with your body or your mind. It has to do with what you do with your soul. This is God. Now that's a wonderful insight. Just the way you put that opens up the space for clarity. Nice. Neil, thank you. I want to share that if you simply love everyone whose life you touch endlessly, unconditionally, with nothing needed or wanted in return, you have become enlightened, and you have shown everyone how they may be enlightened as well. For as fast as any other system that exists like that, as fast as Transcendental Meditation, like that, as fast as joining the Self-Realization Fellowship, like that, as fast as taking EST, or now the Forum, like that. And if you learn to love yourself unconditionally, as well as everyone else, you heal your entire self without lifting a finger. Now I want to discuss this thing called health, because many people believe that you are not entitled unless you are in good, or you are not enlightened unless you are in good health. This is God. You are really on a roll here, aren't you? You opened the door, I walked through it. Go on. I want to hear what you have to say about this. Neil, is enlightenment being in good health? And what is good health anyway? Is good health having a body that has nothing wrong with it? Is good health living until you were 90 or 100 or 200 or 500? Is good health having no pain and nothing wrong with your physical form? Is good health the absence of anything that is not perfect in your physical being? Or is good health being okay and in a place of joy and peace no matter how things are? What is health? What is optimum health if it is not happiness? I know people who exercise every day, lifting weights and running and working out, and their bodies are in great health, but their hearts and their minds and their souls are desperately sad. And I know people who are barely able to lift a toothpick. Their bodies are in such bad shape, but their hearts and their minds and their souls are bright and they are happy. I know such a man. His name is Ram Dass. Ram Dass is a master, and I'm vastly privileged to have met him personally. He's taught many people for many years. He wrote a book called Be Here Now, among others. About 2.5 years ago, Ram Dass had a stroke. He was a young man. He was only 63 or something like that. I met with Ram Dass after his stroke in a hotel room in Denver. And I want to tell you something. I've never met a healthier man. I sat in that room with a master and I said, Ram Dass, how are you? And he sat there in a wheelchair and very slowly and very carefully said, I am wonderful. Now that's health. That's health. That's peace. That's joy. Then Ram Dass sat there and we talked. I asked him many questions because I wanted to hear right from his wonderful mind how he felt and what he'd experienced of this life. And he had great patience with me. He must have heard my questions 100 times before, nay, 1,000 times before, but he listened intently as if he was hearing them for the first time. He did not rush his answers either. I got the impression that he was thinking deeply about each one, going within to see not how he'd answered the question before, but what his experience was now. It was a moment of incredible giving. He was just giving to me. Now, when you have so much happiness, peace, and wisdom and joy that you spend your life sharing it with everyone else, no matter what your predicament, that's enlightenment. You've become a master. When your life is no longer about you, has nothing to do with you, but is about everyone else whose life you touch, you've become a master. In the end, that is why you came here. You did not come here to somehow get better or to work on your stuff. Consider that possibility, that all the work you will ever need to do is finished. All you have to do now is know that. So this moment is the moment of your liberation. You can be liberated from your lifelong search for enlightenment. You can be released from any thought you may have that it has to look like this. No, it has to look like that. No, you have to get to it by this path, by that program, by that other activity. You may still have to do these things if you choose to, but if you feel stressed about them, if you feel pressured by them, then how could they be a path to enlightenment? I know a master called Ichi Lee. He created a wonderful path to enlightenment called Don Hawk. It is a mind-body-spirit integration process that you can engage in for the rest of your life. People have devoted their whole lives to it. It's wonderful. I've tried it. It works. Millions are finding their way to enlightenment with it. I asked Dr. Lee once whether people needed Don Hawk to become enlightened, and his answer was very quick. No. He didn't even try to qualify his response. He didn't equivocate. He just gave me a one-word answer. No. The point here is that there is no one way up the mountaintop. Every true master knows this. So set yourself free today. Stop working so hard on yourself that you don't even enjoy it anymore. Do what works for you, but make sure it brings you joy. Now here is what I know will bring you joy. Decide that for the rest of your life, every day, every moment, every word is something that you will share with everyone whose life you touch in a way that ensures that they will know there is nothing they have to do, nowhere they have to go, and no way they have to be in order to be loved by you right now. Let them know that they are perfect just as they are standing there. Spend the rest of your life giving people back to themselves, that they might love themselves, and show them by how you are with them that you know there is nothing they are lacking, nothing they are missing, nothing they are needing, nothing they are not. I think, oh no, we got 2 pages. I'm going to just jam through here. You want to know the fastest way for anybody to experience that they are enlightened? This is God. Yes, can you tell me? Can you really tell me? Neil, the fastest way of all for anyone to experience that they are enlightened is to cause another to know that they are. That is the message of tomorrow's God. That will be the teaching of the new spirituality. That is why Namaste has become such a powerful tool, such a meaningful and special exchange of energy. The God in me sees and honors the God in you. There's nothing more to be done if we really mean that. Of course, if we are saying that because it sounds good, then there is a great deal more to be done. But if we really mean that, if when we say that, we really mean that, then the struggle is finished, the search is over, and enlightenment is ours at last. End of chapter.
Wow.
I think
Go ahead.
I think every one of you is extremely enlightened.
And you too.
Of course.
Of course.
What fun. That was the best chapter yet, Linda. I'm so sick and tired of do this, do that. Oh, it gets on my nerves. You know, especially the Christian one-way.
There's nothing you have to do.
Right.
What a relief.
It's funny because I seem to have sort of come to that realization myself recently. Like I used to do a lot of reading and trying and efforting, and I guess it was because I kept hearing this idea of surrender. I was like, what the hell is that? And then I finally realized what the hell that was, which was basically just saying yes to life in this moment as it is. And that has become my pretty much sole spiritual practice. Well, that and extending love as much as I'm capable of, which some days is great and some days it's like, meh. But yeah, it was a fun chapter for me because it's sort of like validating what I came to on my own, which is, you know, all that efforting is so unnecessary. And as Linda was reading it, I thought she probably loves it because it's kind of like what she's been saying all along, which is we come into this world, you know, enlightened, basically. I mean, that's a different way of saying what she says. So we just have to realize it and remember it. Yeah, I agree with you. Best chapter ever. Over.
I really enjoyed the chapter, and it was beautifully read, Linda. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Angela beat me to that. I was going to say that.
It's a sit back and think about it chapter without going into I have to do this and I have to do that. It's just for me it's just to think about it. Over.
It's interesting. I shot a video. I haven't posted it yet because I'm still editing it, but I shot a video. I think it was on Earth Day, and I basically said that a lot of what's in this chapter, just basically, the truth is within you. Stop looking outside for the truth, and start tuning in internally. That's where the answers are. So it's interesting that the synchronicity of this chapter.
Agreed.
Did mark this one passage that really sort of that if you think there is a path to enlightenment, that is the only path, the best path, fastest path, the one that everyone has to know about by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, you will suddenly find yourself feeling pressure, stress, upset, and your ego will be deeply involved in convincing as many as people as you can that that's what's so.
So you know what comes to mind? Everybody remember when, what is his name? It wasn't John Travolta, it's the other one. He jumped on the couch. He was on some day show, being interviewed, and he jumped on the couch because he just found Scientology, and he was like trying to convince everybody that Scientology was the way to go.
Oh,
It was a perfect example of that kind of sort of ego involvement, trying to, like, you've got to do this, you know.
I can
must
see
say something. Can I
Tom
say
Cruise.
something about? Okay.
Sorry,
I would like to say something about that, that you took up this with Scientology, because I have a grandchild who is writing for school something about Scientology. And as I was a Scientologist for many years, he has interviewed me, so I've come back to that. And I left Scientology after many years, but I learned a lot. But I had to look other ways. But I learned it was many good things, but there are also very bad things. And then I came to Sai Baba in India, and you mentioned Sai Baba in the book. And Sai Baba, he didn't say, I have the only right way. Scientology was that, but no, because he invited all religions. You could be wherever you were. It was coming to find the divine in yourself. But then, of course, there were backsides there too. I left that also after many years. But it was, it reminds me of, I can't but laugh. But we all learned something on the way.
Right.
Absolutely. There is always something to learn.
It was Tom Cruise. That's who it was.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know.
And I'm not judging Scientology. It was just that it's the perfect example of when the ego is involved and you're like, this is the only way and everybody's got to do it by next Monday, you know. It was such a perfect example of that craziness.
Yeah, I know. I learned a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you. Over.
Yeah, they all the paths have a way. They all have a way, you know, they all have value.
But none of them is the right one for everyone. I feel like there are as many paths as there are people to walk them, and they're all unique and individual, you know, and that's just how I feel.
That's why going within is the best answer.
Right. But sometimes going without helps you figure out what to look for when you go within.
Too true. Well, we're at the end of the hour, so we should let Miss Shabana do the ending meditation.
I think Anne.
I think Ann Darby wants to say.
Anne?
Could I just say something? Just so that there's one thing. I know I missed a lot of it because I'm a bit late. But there's one thing about being enlightened. There's another thing about giving over your power to other people. And I think we need to find that's something important. And that's something to be worked with and that's something important. Especially now with what's happening. So I think perhaps what's happening, you give over your power to these other people, or vaccines, or whatever you want to give over your power to, or doctors, or anybody, whatever. That's the mistake. You have to somehow be authentic. Find your way into authenticity in your own power and work with it and make a difference, because we weren't born here for nothing, surely. Just to eat and go to sleep and clean the floor and die the other side. Surely there's more, surely it's something valuable that could be utilized, finding it and working with it well. Like Ram Dass did, unfortunately, it's not very nice to be disabled really with difficulties, but he learned a lot through that also, I understand. So he put it to good use, whatever happened. Yeah, thank you. That's enough for me.
Yeah, and so Shabana, right before you do the meditation, that is something that I wanted to just touch on is, that this notion that, oh, if you're not healthy, you can't be enlightened. I'm a firm believer that our housing is completely separate from our spirit and our soul, and that our housing can be impacted by other things. Like we can be enlightened and we can be a healer even, but there can be things that are not necessarily always working right with the housing. And Ram Dass is a perfect example of someone like that, who was a real master and totally enlightened, and yet his housing failed him. And maybe it failed him so he could learn more lessons in that state. I don't know, but I've struggled with that myself, because I have that standard. I have held that standard for myself that, if I'm totally enlightened, then I shouldn't have anything physically wrong with me. And I think I think it's a mistake to have that belief. I just want to speak to that for a second. Over.
That's very valuable, what you just said, Linda.
I agree.
Lord God, we thank you that Neil finally got to the point that we're all enlightened, and that sick or healthy, slow or fast, it's about peace and love and spreading it and giving people back to themselves. We thank you that here now, each of us is going forth to tell others that they are absolutely enlightened. Thank you for removing from our hearts and mind the judgment which has caused us distress. Help us spread peace and love, because that's the glue which will bind us in oneness. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shabana.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thank you, Shabana.
And I have to tell you, Shabana, when you said thank you, that Neil finally got to the point, I laughed so hard.
Yeah, I did too. It was Shabana in her great space.
Yep.
All righty. Now, let me ask, is next Sunday Mother's Day in the U.S.?
Yes, May 10th,
So,
I believe so.
It is.
I don't have any big plans, but others might.
I am not a mother, and I don't have a mother, and I can't leave my house anyway, so I'm cool.
Well, let's just plan on meeting, and we'll just take it from there.
I'm glad Mary got to the point so fast.
It looks like we're going to finish next week, actually. I was looking, and there's just one chapter left, and then there's a lot of notes.
So were you born in vitro or what, Mary? You don't have
I had a mother, but she died. So
Okay, I'm glad you've got a sense of humor about it.
she was 94. She lived a good long life. It was time when she died. You know, it was the most beautiful death and funeral I've ever seen in my life. Really, I have no bad feelings about it. When she was in the nursing home for several years, at the end, I went to see her as often as I could. Once a week when I was working, several times a week when I wasn't. And every time when I left, I just knew that I was complete. You know, I said goodbye knowing I might never see her again. And yeah, I have no bad juju around it at all. When for the day of her funeral, when we were going there, the clouds looked like angels over there were like 18 angels in the clouds. I counted them. So it was just, you know, she had a beautiful passing after some years of being stuck in that nursing home and not at her best anymore. So yeah, and 94 is a good run.
What a beautiful description. I'm impressed. Thank you, Mary.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that connection to dying, because you talked about Mother's Day. It's in the end of this month, and 70 years ago, my daughter died on Mother's Day.
Oh my.
Sitting, looking into my eyes, and a complete peaceful. And I have still that energy inside my heart, that the connection. She was only 33. But, and her small kids are big now. They were small at that time. And she gave a message, an advice for life, that the Sufi master came and asked her, because they do it in their tradition, what would you advise to life? Be alive, live, and do what you really want to do in life now. She did that her whole life. She did a lot of good things. She was amazing. And she was sitting looking into my eyes when she died.
Oh, how lovely. Mm.
Very special.
Beautiful.
That's a wonderful thing. And what a terrible thing, but a wonderful thing, if you know what I mean.
It couldn't be better. She stayed with me the last 4 months in her life, because she could go into her depth, be connected to the divine. She was in another field when she died. You could feel it.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful. I'm so grateful. So when I think of her, I just say grateful for the connection and for what I learned.
Beautiful.
Mm.
She's
Okay.
with you, I'm sure.
Thank you so much for that I could share. You remind me of so many things when you're talking. Okay.
Yeah, that was very nice. All right, well then, and we can talk more of that kind of stuff next time. So it doesn't seem like we're in a hurry. And if somebody else wants to share.
I would like to add something more, and that is the flu. Now this corona, it's so dangerous, and I'm 74, so I should not meet with anyone and so on, you know. And I haven't had the flu since I was 13 years old. It was 59. And at that time, me and my mother and my father got the Asiaten, I don't know what it's called in Asia, in flu, and many people died of it. And my father died. He was only 45. He died of it. So I lost my father in that flu, and now they are reminding of that. But he was a wonderful person as well. So I have a very good relationship in my heart and memories from childhood with him. But I was only 14 at that time. So dying is natural, but we don't trust it really. But it is. If to die is bad, life wouldn't be. The life that's not seen is always free. It's a poem I learned once.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, and the other thing about dying is that, I mean, and this, I think this is important to understand right now, because there's so many people dying. We all signed up for this. We all signed up to come here. We all signed up to participate. And the people that are dying as a part of COVID, they volunteered to do that. Nothing is out of order here. Everything is divine perfection. It doesn't look perfect, but that's because we're in a 3D realm and we're looking at it through 3D, eyes and 3D energy. But this is this is all a part of the play. And there's nothing wrong here. It's what do we bring to it? What do we get out of it? What are we putting into it? You know, who are we being? That's what's important. And so I'm just extremely grateful. Every time I hear about somebody that's died from COVID, I'm just extremely grateful that they volunteered to participate, because this is the mass awakening. This is the opportunity. This is the chance that humanity's being given right now to wake up to what we've done to the planet, to what we're doing to each other, to the failure of all our governments, to the failure of ourselves to each other. It's like the biggest, most beautiful thing that's happening. And if we can look at the deaths with gratitude and learn what's the message here? What are we being shown? What can we learn? How do our hearts break open? You know, that's what it's about. And not getting caught up in the, oh, look at all the people that have died, and isn't that tragic and sad? And because there's lots of people out there with that story, and that's just not where we want to put our energy. Over.
So what I'm thinking then is that it's better, we need to be awake, and it doesn't matter so much about enlightenment, it's awake rather than asleep, because we need to see what's going on, really.
Right.
There's a lot going on, and there is a danger, that the life that we could live maybe taken by restricted from being able to do anything. So we need to be awake, really awake. So it's good if we wake up and then find out what our power is and work with it and be informed. That's how I see it.
Agreed.
And see it all as we're a unity.
Agreed. I'm going to wind this up because I know Linda's got a group to go to, right?
No, I don't.
Oh, you
I
don't?
don't.
Okay.
No, not happening anymore.
Okay. Well, I have something I need to go do.
So don't rush off for me.
2 minutes. So let's wrap it up, and thank you, Shabana, for doing the meditation, and thanks everybody for your input. And I think we can discuss this more next week. It'll be our Mother's Day gifts to ourselves. So,
there you go.
All right. I love you all.
Love you too.
You.
Okay, see you next week.
Bye.
Namaste.
Same time.
Namaste.
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 Yeah, namaste.